Welcome to this episode of The Marketing Companion, brought to you by G-Shift and Voices Heard Media. Here are your hosts, Mark Schaefer and Tom Webster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Marketing Companion. This is Mark Schaefer with my co-host, the return of Tom Webster. Welcome back, Tom.
You know, you say that I'm returning, but it's you, Mark. It is you that is returning. It is you that must return to the fold of our happy relationship. For you have strayed. It is you who have gone away, that has gone out and left us what we have.
Well, for our listeners who don't know what's going on, if you missed the last episode, Tom and I had a scheduling problem, and I had to do an episode with Jay Bear. And, you know, Tom, I got to say, it just felt right in some ways.
It had to be with Jay. It had to be with Jay. It couldn't be with just some stranger.
Well,
you had to take my friend.
It made me realize that, we're on our third year together, and maybe that spark just isn't there like it used to be. Okay, but I'm ready to recommit. If you're open, I am.
Well, let's see how today goes. One day at a time, Mark.
One day at a time. So I thought what we would do is I saw this relationship quiz this week in the Wall Street Journal, which of course is where I always go for my relationship advice.
This explains a lot with our relationship.
So I thought maybe we could open this dialogue in a healthy way. So I wanted to go through a few of these questions. Are you open to this?
I'm open. Okay. I'm very open.
The first one is, my partner understands my feelings. True or false?
I think that's false.
You don't think I understand your feelings?
Again, I say it had to be Jay. I don't know. It's hard for me to get my head around you understanding my feelings when you don't just cheat on me, Mark. You cheat on me with a close friend.
See, this is good. I love your openness. I love where we're going with this. The next one is, my partner and I equitably share household and parenting responsibilities.
Well, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, without question, we share parenting responsibilities equally. So, which is none.
I think that's a plus for us.
I think that is a plus for us. Yeah, I think we've worked that out.
Mm-hmm. The next one is, my partner and I feel connected when we are together, even when we are not saying much. Now, I struggled with this because I can't remember a time when we weren't talking. So what I'd like to do is just be on a podcast and not talk for one moment and see if we're connected. So here we go. Ready, set, go. How was that for you?
Oh, hey. Oh, Mark, is that you? Oh, hey, it's time to do the podcast.
I guess that answers that one. Well, again,
where am I? By the way, kids, moments of silence are awesome in podcasts. It's one of the best things you can do. If you're a pro podcaster like Mark and I, remember to include lots of dead air.
It's called white space, Tom.
White space, yeah, it's dead air.
All right. Here's the last one. Our bodies respond when we see each other. Why are you laughing? You're hurting my feelings.
I'm laughing because of the great joy that memories bring to me, and
maybe we should take this question offline.
Well, you asked it.
I'm just following the quiz.
Yeah,
this is out of my hands.
And this is how the Wall Street Journal saved our
I'm approaching this scientifically because I care.
I get that, and I want to respond to you. Yeah. You know what? Jay can have you.
Well, I'm glad to be back. It's always fun talking with Jay, but
It was a really good podcast, by the way. It was a super good conversation.
Yeah. He didn't pass my job interview at the beginning, though.
No, he failed that spectacularly, but I thank you for that.
Yes. Well, let's get on with our show. Quite an interesting topic about real-time marketing. And this was prompted by a article that you sent to me that was written by, excuse me, still a little woozy from my latest overseas trip. This was written by Lars Silberbauer of Lego. And hey, when Lego speaks, I'm going to listen.
I am too.
And so I think you kind of agreed with this article, but I wanted to read a few sentences here to give our listeners some context. And I'll also put the entire article as a link in the show notes. So Lars says, the idea of attaching your brand to a spectacular news moment a la Oreo that will fuel incredible viral reach and connect with millions has distracted marketers from the full potential of real time. The potential lies far beyond content in how we let this challenge every aspect of our present business model. And he later even talks about finance and other company functions should be operating on real time. We are now in a position where we have the ability to process and interpret data in a way that allows us to understand our consumers and their feelings, and to a certain degree, anticipate their intentions like never before. We can and must understand the context in which our consumers are living and how that context is developing. We need to understand what our competitors are doing all the time and how potential partners might be making movements. Yet brands are still clutching onto old models. From forecasting to path to purchase models, there's this intense resistance to allowing real time to become an authentic business model. Why? Because it's scary and disruptive. Conclusion: the only thing that counts is having the mindset and capability to activate the tools that will put you there at the crucial moment. Be there at the right time or miss out. So this struck a chord with you.
Well, it did strike a chord with me, and it's I'm kind of surprised that we haven't talked about real-time marketing on the podcast before. But indeed we have not. So I actually had kind of mixed views on this article because to me, number one, I am not a fan of what we commonly call today real-time marketing, which is a complete misnomer anyway, and I'll get to that. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think it's extraordinarily dangerous for brands. And when I read the headline, Oreo set a dangerous precedent for real-time marketing, I agreed with the headline, and I thought that's what the article was going to be about. But what this article actually did was the same thing that real-time marketing does, which is inject a non sequitur into another conversation. And this actually was an article about operations and operations and finance and logistics that started off as an article about marketing, but wasn't really an article about marketing at all. But ultimately, I do think Oreo set a dangerous precedent for real-time marketing. I think Oreo made it into a thing, and I don't think it's a very good thing.
Well, I love this because we disagree. And that got my attention because when you posted this on Facebook, you called the Oreo marketing. And by the way, for our listeners, especially for our listeners perhaps outside of the U.S. who aren't familiar with this campaign, during the Super Bowl of 2013, there was an electricity disruption, and the lights of the stadium went dark during this amazing, iconic sports event. And Oreo blasted through with this ad during the Super Bowl that said, it's okay to dunk your cookies, to dunk in the dark. And this kind of set the advertising world on fire. How in the world did they come up with something that creative, that fast, that effective, and this new standard for what is being called real-time marketing was born? So the issue that you take with this is you said that isn't marketing at all. So tell me
No.
more about what you think about that.
I don't believe it's marketing at all. I mean, I'm a bit conservative about this. I think marketing is anticipating and/or creating demand to profitably delight customers. And to me, marketing is the theory of the firm. This was more like improv advertising.
Mm-hmm.
I originally called it responsive advertising. I think that gives it too much credit. I think of it as improvisational advertising. And yes, you can put a structure in place to be more successful, or to increase your odds of success with a structure in place, and that has all kinds of approvals and perhaps pre-made content and things like that. But ultimately, I don't think this did a thing except create a topic to be discussed in the halls of agencies. It was a clever moment.
Mm-hmm.
We got a chuckle out of it. It is unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Oreo's brand promise that we're going to be firstest with the mostest on Twitter during real-time events?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, even though this, we can debate the success of this or not. I mean, to me, this is advertising and not marketing. And the goal of advertising is to get your attention. And this got my attention. So in that sense, it is successful.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what happened when Oreo did this. Real-time marketing became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all these other brands started to do it. And what we started to see were a series of brands doing it poorly, and erasing what their brand value is, what their brand promise is to consumers. Right? And whatever the brand, and I'll pick on DiGiorno's here. DiGiorno's seems to have a real bug for doing real-time marketing.
Right.
And they do it fairly poorly. They have had a couple of funny moments, but they're basically like a bad improv comedian who kind of strikes gold 2 out of every 100 times. The other 98, they're just not so good. What they do is they replace their brand promise. The brand promise of DiGiorno's is delivery quality from your freezer. Mm-hmm. That's the brand promise, right? Mm-hmm. From it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno's to the great theme song from the opera singer that they had on. I don't know if you remember that one. For restaurant taste at your place, DiGiorno's. Thank you. And instead, what they did was they replaced that brand promise with this cleverness.
Yeah.
And that is not a brand. There are some brands for which being clever is in fact the brand value that is central to that brand, but not DiGiorno's.
Well, boy, you've really brought up a lot of rich topics here. So let me just start with one, and let's go back to the definition of what marketing is about. And I substantially agree with what you said, but my view in this world is how the best way to use digital is to create these provocations or these opportunities for people to be aware of us or maybe even engage with us in a way that leads them up toward more and more engagement over time and hopefully a purchase. So we want to create this series of interactions over time. Real-time marketing, that might be one way to do that, but there's got to be lots of ways to do that, including traditional advertising and public relations. So it's one way to create these provocations to help our customers be aware and interact with us. So I think what I saw happening with that Oreo event was it absolutely did that. It created this immense awareness, immense dialogue. And for the first time, maybe since I was a child, Oreo was cool. Oreo was dominating the popular culture conversation. Oreo had a major presence at South by Southwest this year. They followed it up with the rainbow cookie ads and other ads that, were they gimmicky? Was it clever? Yeah, but I think let's substitute the word clever with thought-provoking or a big idea. So clever, yes, it can be gimmicky, but I think big ideas can still win. If you look at the best digital marketing campaigns, there's a big idea behind that, and you could say that's clever. But what it accomplishes is it creates those provocations. It creates that awareness that leads to engagement, and engagement leads to action, hopefully, at some point. You got to keep driving people up that engagement curve. And, I haven't seen any statement about how this did or didn't drive results for Oreo. But certainly as far as the driving awareness in the popular culture and discussion and engagement, I think it was an undeniable success.
Well, that particular instance, right, and Oreo, in fact, has been successful at doing this,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's been a successful tactic for Oreo.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And when we talk about real-time marketing, what do we talk about? We talk about Oreo. Why? Because everyone's sucked at it since.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. It is not a thing that brands can pull off very successfully. And I will once again, I'll pick on DiGiorno's, but I have loads of others to pick on. What happens is that these brands get intoxicated with trying to outdo each other with clever moments during real-time events, right? So during the Oscars, the last Oscars broadcast, there was a tribute to The Sound of Music, right? Which is a movie about a family who escapes the Nazis, who were cremating people in ovens. And DiGiorno's Pizza tweets, "The ovens are alive with the sound of pizza again." Now that tweet was deleted because it's clearly offensive. It's offensive on so many levels. And it was basically done by a brand whose sole purpose at that moment was to try to be clever, not to add value to consumers' lives, not to bring attention to the quality of their pizza, but just to be clever. And in being clever, they were horrifically offensive.
Well, I agree. I agree with you, and I want to bring in another angle here. I think one of the reasons it's excruciatingly difficult to do this and to be successful is because we've got these organizational structures that are very traditional, very hierarchical, and you've got all these approvals and lawyers, and I think it is difficult to do real time well because of these organizational structures we have in place. And I think maybe that's one of the things that the fellow from Lego is saying in this article.
Yeah, it is difficult to do real time well, but I will point out to our listeners that real time marketing was already a thing. Real time marketing has been a thing for over a decade. It is a term that existed to describe something entirely different. Real-time marketing is an operational term that, whenever you purchase something from Amazon, and as soon as you purchase it, you get 3 other things recommended to you.
Yeah,
that's real-time marketing.
Sure,
that's what that is called, and what that has been called for 10 years before Oreo. So this is, the term has been misappropriated a little bit. So what I am 1,000% in favor of optimizing our marketing procedures and how we time offers for the right moment, the right message, the right context. That's what it should be about, not trying to outdo each other with clever tweets, which again, I don't see as real-time marketing. I see it as, responsive or improv advertising.
Yeah, I mean, to the point, the one sentence in the article that I read, it said, well, we need to understand what our competitors are doing all the time and how potential partners might be making movements. We need to anticipate our customers' needs. My reaction to that was kind of like, duh.
Yeah.
I mean, that is marketing.
That is marketing. That's what marketing always has been. I do think that we run the risk in the, the goal here is this chasing of being able to do things in real time.
Yeah.
Tactics happen in real time. Strategies do not happen in real time. And that is the only caution I would give there. I think if you have a good strategy and that strategy is to execute tactics quicker than your consumers, or to be able to execute messaging in the right time, place, and context, then that's what technology is great at, but not strategy.
Well, I think we went through a period where people were a bit on fire with this Oreo success, and it like you said, it kind of became a thing. But anecdotally, what I'm picking up, I talked to a couple agency people in New York, and there have been some boutique agencies that have popped up around real-time marketing, and a lot of the big companies are backing away from this now because they're saying, well, they're kind of reflecting what you're saying in a way where this is. This is more of a gimmick. We don't really see how this aligns with the brand. We don't really know how to measure this. Let's go back to some of the stuff that we know that works. So that could be an interesting movement.
Well, let me be kind to what we're calling real-time marketing for a moment, because I don't think it is a gimmick at all. What I do think it is incredibly hard. Yeah. The hardest thing to do in acting is comedy. Mm-hmm. Comedy is really, really difficult, and most real-time marketing has an element of comedy to it. Mm-hmm. Comedy is really hard. You know, any comedian works their stuff out. There's a famous story about Jerry Seinfeld's Pop-Tart joke that he reworked that joke for 2 years to get it. You know, look up Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart joke, and that is what a comedian does. A comedian doesn't just come up with something off the top of their head and hope it works. They work it out. They work that material out. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really difficult to do, which, you know, the dangerous precedent of Oreo is that they nailed it. But let me say this, there are 4 kinds of real-time marketing that I see in the wild, and only one of them is good. There's the good kind, which does provoke, which does capture attention in a way that helps the brand, and that's what Oreo did. There's the grotesquely offensive kind, which certainly the ovens are alive with the sound of pizza was. But there are 2 other kinds, and they're equally dangerous. One is the brands pleasuring each other kind, which I'll put it nicely.
Tell me more what you mean by that.
You see this, go back and read what some of the brands are doing during the Oscars. And what you have are brands responding to other brands.
Oh, right.
Heinz Ketchup and Tide going back and forth about stains. Yeah. Chobani and Newcastle Brown Ale going back and forth about their Yogurt Bear ad and how the bear would have done better with some beer in him. Nobody cares about that. Those are people at agencies having fun with each other at the, you know, that's sort of agencies 1, consumers 0 at the end of that. Mm-hmm. But the worst kind, you know, it's easy to find the anecdotes like the DiGiorno one that are offensive, but those aren't even really the worst kind. There are very few sort of patently offensive ones. The worst kind is, imagine that you are in a conversation with somebody at a party, and someone's telling you about a new movie that they just saw. Like, hey, I just saw this new movie. It's I just saw this Amy Winehouse documentary. It's absolutely stunning. You say, you know what? You know who can measure documentaries? Edison Research. Right? Now do that over and over and see how welcome you are at that party. Mm-hmm. That's what so much real-time marketing is. You know, there was a trunk club thing, you know, for Cinco de Mayo. Like, here's what we'd wear on Cinco de Mayo. It's like, come on. You know, JCPenney was trying to horn in on the Sochi Olympics with people with mittens on trying to tweet. Yeah. You know, there's just... Come on. It's like, I'm having a conversation. I'm trying to tell you about this event and how I'm reacting to it. And you're like, you know what else is great? Edison Research. Yeah. Yeah. It is offensive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's trying to look relevant, and it just completely fails.
Well, it's sad. Yeah. But again, I you know, real-time marketing, I don't believe is gimmicky. I just think it is way too difficult for every brand to try it. It is really difficult to do.
You know, I think what it gets down to is one of the philosophies that I've always had when I was managing marketing teams was the company that listens the best and responds the fastest will ultimately win. And I think that applies exceedingly well to our digital world, where we have all this data streaming at us, beaming at us constantly. Now, it's more of a challenge. The numbers are bigger, the expectations are higher, but the fundamental philosophy of being in tune and listening and responding, being agile, being customer focused is more important than ever. And that's what real time really means to me is use this data in a way that gives us some sort of advantage or point of differentiation because we listen and we care and we respond better.
I have to share with you a term that my wife Tamsin invented, which I think is hysterically funny about real-time marketing. And it refers specifically towards brands that come up with tweets that are trying to basically latch on to the most, irrelevant things to their brand, right? And a brand tweeting on Arbor Day that Happy Arbor Day, try our pizza, that kind of thing. She calls that SAD, seasonal advertising disorder. When a brand tries to latch on to a holiday or an event with something that is only tangentially, if at all, related, that's sad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I think that that my idea of real-time marketing is not gimmicky, not sad like that. It's focusing on the customer. I think the example that you gave from Amazon is really good. I think when is picking up on the tone and the words in consumer conversations. And again, the bigger you get, the harder that is to scale. It means a new commitment in resources, in technology, in people, in responsiveness. But I think that's where companies really have the opportunity.
You know who has an opportunity? Edison Research.
Good example, Tom.
Thank you. I have seasonal advertising disorder. I have it bad.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I saw this date. I've got a blog post coming up about this study that was done that shows in the last 12 months there's been this dramatic shift in bringing marketing work inside. The study, it says here that the number of companies who no longer work with outside marketing agencies is now 27%, up from 13% in the previous year. Doesn't that seem amazing to you?
It does, but I think one thing that the real-time marketing craze highlights again is how difficult it is to do well. And if you are going to trust people in the wild to be reactive like that, it's you better be a really good agency.
It's got to be your own people.
It's got to be your own people to do it. Yeah,
that's what that's what that number says to me.
Yeah,
is that people are realizing it's not just about an ad anymore. It's about a relationship, and anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I interpret that. Companies are saying this is too important to abdicate to an agency anymore. We can't build our marketing program on campaigns. We've got to build them on relationships, and we're going to bring this in-house. But I was astounded by this number, and the research was actually done by a firm that was hired by a professional group of digital agencies. So obviously they're shocked by this number, but it's quite an interesting trend.
It is, but I'm not so shocked by it, and I do think that real-time marketing has had something to do with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because it is, I don't know. At the end of in the final analysis, I hate saying at the end of the day, in the final analysis, Mark, Edison Research. No, in the final analysis, the upside and the downside are not equal here. I think there's some upside to having a successful in-the-moment tweet that is clever and gets you positive attention. But one tweet can give you a moment, or it can ruin you for a period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, one tweet, you know, just that oven tweet from DiGiorno's, the upside of that tweet does not balance the tremendous downside of screwing it up. And if you're going to do it, I don't know, you know, at least for our company with our brand value, I couldn't trust that to an outside agency.
And speaking of a brand that you can trust,
the Marketing Companion.
The Marketing Companion and G-Shift, our sponsors, a wonderful company in Toronto. They have got some amazing things going on with innovations around reporting and their analytical dashboards. One of the interesting things that they're doing now is if you're an agency, you can actually white label their dashboards to make you look amazing. So check out G-Shift today.
You know who else is a company?
I can guess.
Voices Heard Media. Voices Heard Media, a sponsor since day one of the Marketing Companion, a company. They've been around since 2007. You know what else was around in 2007?
What?
I don't know. Voices Heard Media.
Oreo.
Oreo certainly was. You know what also tastes great?
You can dunk in 2007.
Voices Heard Media helps you scale engagement for your audience, your readers, your customers, with all kinds of really cool tools to provide things like surveys and polls and all kinds of things that you can plug into your site and make people love you. And you know what else people love?
Me.
Mark Schaefer.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you were really going to say?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
Of course I was. Because I've forgiven you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. I'm glad. You know, this is. I think we've really made progress on our relationship today, and I'm
despite that quiz, I agree.
I'm feeling good about our third year, and I'm feeling good about all the amazing people who listen to our podcast. We really enjoy hearing from you guys, and if you haven't subscribed yet, think about subscribing to our podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you think. And until next time, this is Mark Schaefer, Tom Webster signing off. We'll see you on the next episode of The Marketing Companion.